Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the President and the Executive Committee of the chapter to the webinar conducted by CS Sri Lanka chapter of Western Region KSA. For today's session, we have CA members joining us from Sri Lanka, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Riyadh, and Dammam KSA. We also have members of other accounting bodies and colleagues from other professional bodies participating. I thank you all on behalf of the chapter for accepting our invitation and joining with us today. CS Sri Lanka members, please type in your name and membership number in the chat box. Participants, please feel free to post your questions relevant to today's session in Q&A box. Our panelist today is renowned Sri Lankan business leader, Dr. Kishore Gomes. Kishore Gomes is the Group Managing Director and CEO of Dreamrun Group of Companies. He is former Chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism and former Managing Director and CEO of Chevron Lubricants Lanka PLC and Chevron Ceylon Limited. He served for more than 18 years as MD and CEO. He is the youngest Sri Lankan to hold such position. He also served as Director in Caltex India and Chairman as Caltex Lubricants Bangladesh. He also worked with Coca-Cola and taken up 2 country assignments in Bangladesh and Vietnam. Having an MBA from the University of Leicester and being a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing UK, Kishore Gomes has won many regional and global awards in different aspects of business. He is also an acclaimed speaker, sharing his leadership skills and experience with private and public sector organizations and institutes in order to create competitive Sri Lankan workforce. Apart from all of these achievements, he is also a national 110-meter hurdles champion. Dr. Gomes, it is an honor to have you with us today. Over to you, and later on we'll take the question and answer sessions.
All right, thank you very much for that brief introduction. And before I say anything else, I guess I should thank Vajira for roping me in. And he got in touch with me, I think, via LinkedIn. And then I quickly responded, and then I shared my number. He called me, and just over 3-4 minutes, we agreed that we will do this today. So I'm glad that I was able to find the time to be a part of this very important session. Mostly, I would think it's Sri Lankans, but I also believe that there would be some foreigners, which I need to bear in mind when basically, relating some examples and things like that. So thank you very much for placing confidence in me and joining, this very important session this evening. It's a very volatile environment, which we all know. Wherever you are living and working in the world, it's very uncertain times, and we don't know what will happen next, whether COVID is going to be eradicated over the next 6 months' time, or whether it will continue to be there haunting us as individuals and as businesses for the next 10 years. So nobody knows, nobody has an answer. But that being that, we need to bring about certainty to the uncertainties that are hovering around by doing what we can, by focusing on what we control, and still keep our lives going, keep our businesses going. And if and when the situation changes, if it's favorable, we will certainly be having greater capability to perform at a much higher level. And if it worsens, then you will still be able to with your strategy of directing your energy to control what you can, you will obviously have better results you would have otherwise achieved. So that's the way to approach the whole world. But as professionals and as individuals and as businesses, we don't live in a world where we can, just wait and see to respond to the challenges that are confronting us. We need to do things today in the given environment, taking into account what we experience, what we see, what we come to terms with, and keep playing the game in order to achieve the best we could under these circumstances. Based on what I discussed with Vajira, obviously, there have been some questions that have been collated, which have been, shared with me. And it would be my pleasure to answer them to the best of my ability. And I must say that, they are great questions. And in fact, when we had a little chit chat before we officially, started this session, I said these questions had to come from accountants and finance leaders. So the flavor of these questions is as such that, they are the most critical, questions everyone is, trying to find answers for. So they are great questions, but all what I can tell you as opening remarks at this point in time is let us not worry about too much, noise and voice that's floating around. Let's funnel everything through and basically focus on what we can focus on as professionals at this moment of time, and direct all our energy, put our best effort behind controlling what we can, and keep performing. Obviously, there are other people, other experts who are working on the pandemic itself, and I'm sure day in, day out, they put in their best effort as well. So who knows, in other 2 weeks' time, we might, hear the news that, some country in some laboratory, they've come up with a vaccination, and, it's just one dose, you are guarded for life. Who knows? Or it could be another, vaccination where, 2 doses, or every year you have to, give 1 dose, and you are pretty safeguarded. So, it could be that, which is, very positive. But if we just comb through the history of the world, this is not the first time the world is confronted with, such a huge issue. Of course, during our time, it is the biggest issue. So therefore, for us, this is it. And we are highly, disturbed. But when we comb through the history, long history, the history says that, there have been civil issues in the past and they have been dealt with. And even during our time, there have been other pandemics and epidemics, that have actually, haunted the world. And the world has been able to, overcome those challenges as well in the past pretty effectively. But yes, I mean, COVID-19 has been hovering around for the last 1.5 years plus. And as we speak today, the medical fraternity does not have a concrete solution to it other than the vaccination that, gives you some kind of protection, but you can, yet contract the disease, the virus, and therefore there is still a risk. So that's the environment within which, we need to play the game. But I, as a professional who has, over 3 decades experience, having actually encouraging people to do their best and not to wait until situation improves, but look at what you can do in the given environment to do your best and deliver the best you can for the business you're attached to and for yourself. I think that's the right attitude to have. One more thing before I pose. While from one side, we hear about all the bad news and we inundated with, so much of it, but at the same time, there are very positive developments happening as well. Let us, talk about a few examples. Olympic is going to go on, and it is happening next month. And people, athletes from around the world, would be, getting into Japan. And Japan, in fact, has allowed 10,000 spectators to come to the grounds and to, be a part of that. I mean, there is, or rather there was a cricket test championship match that was concluded 2 days ago between India and New Zealand, played in the UK, and Sri Lanka team is playing against the English team during this period. Tennis tournaments are going on every single day, and the European Football Cup is being played as well. So life is going on. Not only do people do businesses, they engage in other activities as well. So let us also pay attention to those positives and keep talking to ourselves and face this challenge with the entire knowledge we have, all the skills we have, all the competencies we have, and everything we got in us as professionals, and battle it out and become victorious. So with that, I will pause and let you take the baton from here, Osman.
Thanks for the introduction, Dr. Gomez. We will start with the questions. Of course, now we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and everyone understands that this is a turbulent time, and they have to take certain actions to protect their bottom lines, to protect the people working for the company, and so on. It's very clear, but there could be times when the turbulent is industry specific, or company specific, or an economy specific, or even it could be region specific. There was a Gulf War sometime back in Middle East, and that was very much region specific. So, Doctor, at which point an organization or a country or a region should realize that we are in the middle of a turbulent time and we need to take certain actions for our survival and going concern? So, if you could help us understand that context.
Sure, I'm sure all of you guys have a perspective on that, but what you want is my perspective. When do we say that the environment is turbulent? Let me define it this way. Turbulent time is a time where your plan is totally distracted. Your strategy has become obsolete, and strategy cannot deliver the results the strategy intended to achieve. It's a situation where your business plan is invalid. It's not valid anymore, and you need to refresh your business plan. It's a situation where the demand has significantly dropped, affecting your cash flow. Therefore, your finance strategy is not working anymore, demanding you to come up with something radical, something revolutionary, something extraordinary. It's a situation where employees are highly disturbed, and they cannot naturally focus on their job roles. They need to be better managed, and it is an environment within which consumer sentiments have turned negative again, significantly. It's not the same consumer sentiment, so therefore your value proposition may not be relevant to the same extent to the consumer as it was before. And all the assumptions you have made to come up with your business strategies and to make the investment decisions, have gone completely wrong, predominantly wrong. And it's a situation that the competitive landscape is completely different. The competitive advantages you were riding on before aren't the competitive advantages anymore, right? So it is a situation where you need to rethink, you need to reshape, you need to realign to survive. So that would be my definition and my perspective on it.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. And the second question, which has come from one of our members, and this question is very common. And even in the workplaces, we are facing this issue. Now, during this downturn, there could be still growth opportunities for businesses. But those opportunities could come with a higher degree of risk because the future outlook is not certain. So how advisable is it to pursue an aggressive growth strategy during this time?
Okay, Usman, great question. And as I said, during our little chit chat, these kind of questions had to come from, professionals, and in that accounting professionals. But let me approach it this way. Whether it's a pandemic situation, turbulent situation, or otherwise, is there any business that has no risk, right? Is there any business decision that we can make where when we make the decision, we can say, it's not risky and there are no risks, right? So at whatever the time you make an investment decision, there are risks. But obviously when the environment is turbulent, when things are more uncertain than during a normal, time, surely one can say it's a greater risk, right? But from an investment standpoint, while markets would crash, the consumption, would drop, the size of the pie will, get squeezed, and within that, those who share the pie, will have to be contended with a smaller volume. What one likely scenario is that, a risky environment, uncertain environment, the small people, small businesses, small investors would struggle more than the big, companies in terms of taking risks, right? The big companies, those who have the muscle to allocate a certain percentage, even if it doesn't work, you still have your core business to depend on. And by investing a part of your resources, you see a good opportunity, and you have done all your assessment, all your evaluations, all your feasibilities, and you find in the given environment, you have a good chance of being able to succeed. The small guys and those who are not willing to take risks, would not come forward to play in that, space. So there are, one can say that given that, you anyway have risks in an uncertain environment, those who are willing to take risks might, find a nice viable, opportunity, and you enter, you start playing, you just, expand your footprint and you stabilize yourself, within that, then you would have that first mover advantage to take on any other competitor who might later, think of entering the market, right? So that's one, right? So in terms of taking risks. The other thing is the environment has become uncertain, and it is a situation where we did not anticipate that. But even in the quite beaten world, we know that some industries have flourished, right? For example, telecommunication industry. Now, if I may take a local example, SoftLogic Group, which was bleeding because, they were expanding, they were on high borrowing, their finance cost was, huge, and cash flow wasn't enough. It's like the country situation, right? The cash, I'm talking about SoftLogic because it's a listed company, so therefore I'm not doing anything unethical. This is only to learn, nothing else. But at the end, it's a positive for SoftLogic as well. So therefore, I don't think I'm doing any injustice. So they were in that position, and suddenly, with COVID, coming and hitting the country, there are some of their product ranges have, skyrocketed in terms of volume. The laptops to mobiles to various other communication devices, and as a result of that, their second quarter results or the first quarter results, one of the two. Pardon me for not remembering it accurately. The growth over the corresponding quarter last year is 180%, right? 180%. So
it's always good to, spread the risk. That way, when you fail in one sector due to, some calamity, due to some turbulence, you have to take a risk whether you like it or not. There is another business that you can depend on, a business that can, do slightly better, a business that can do, extremely well in the given environment, right? So I think one way to mitigate the risk is also by basically diversifying and getting into, multiple areas, so that when one fails, you have, something else to lean on to. But every, sector that you get into, you need to be sure that you as a business have the capabilities, the knowledge, the know-how, and, ideally, you are able to achieve synergies, using the resources you have already deployed, right? For example, very simple example, if you have been in the restaurant business, you've been promoting, let's say, Indian food, and Indian food, people would enjoy 10% of the time, but that 10% was enough for you to, build a very profitable business. But the overall demand goes down, and 10%, gives you only 50% of the volume as compared to the previous volume. And, you start marketing or start selling Chinese food, right? So you lose 50% of the Indian business, but you gain 50% out of the Chinese business. You are in the restaurant business, you have premises, if it's dining in, type of place, and you have a chef, who did Indian food. If the same guy can do Chinese well and good, if not, it's a matter of roping in a chef like guy to do the Chinese, right? And you transfer his knowledge, over a period of 6 months, you kick the guy off, and then, it's an Indian guy who did Indian who will now do, Chinese. So what I'm saying is, it's always a good thing, because just imagine the guys who are only operating in the hospitality business. Just look at the plight of the guys who are only depending on the transportation business. Look at the plight of the guys who are only entertaining, dining in business. Today in Colombo, all the 5-star hotels do home deliveries. Did you ever think, 2 years ago that Hilton would, deliver stuff other than cake and stuff like that, which they used to do anyway, that, they would, deliver your breakfast, bullseye egg and, toast and, cheese and, salad and, a pack, like this, that you can take to your palm, right? So I think that's the learning. That's the biggest learning we have, right? And today is COVID affecting tourism, transportation, airline business, all of that. Tomorrow it can be something else where those 3 or 4 businesses that are bleeding like nothing today, would come back and start growing by double digit. And, some other industry that is doing extremely well today, would, completely die. So, spreading the risk is good. And in terms of whether it's advisable to take high risks, obviously, right assessment has to be done, right? Whether it's a pandemic environment or otherwise, you need to do your feasibility very well. You need to be sure of the competitor advantages, you can gain over your competitors. You should be pretty clear on the level of investment that you have to make in order to have substantial play in that given business, to ensure that the revenue you can generate would be good enough for you to deliver a positive bottom line. If you are borrowing money, you should be very sure that you can meet the finance cost with the cash flow you would generate initially. So right feasibility, right assessment, doing everything right, and reading what can be read and taking all those into account, ensuring that while there can be a risk, risk is minimal, and taking the risk is worthwhile, because if it works, the return is going to be good. And if you lose, the loss is not going to be significant. It's not going to, dig your own grave, but, you can still keep your nose above water in an uncertain environment, because worst thing that can happen to you is where the existing business, your core business has, gone down significantly, and you have been, pushed to a situation where you got to borrow more money, and your finance cost will, turn the business up, upside down. And while not having a solution, making a huge investment, with let's say 50% probability, where if it doesn't work, you are dead, right? You can't be in that situation. So, I mean, in summary, Usman, I would say, whatever the time you make an investment, there is a risk. And you really, again, comb through the history, you have seen, swings in industries, right? So to benefit from the upward movements, and to be able to cushion, to be able to withstand the downward trends, is always good to diversify and be in multiple businesses. And that's one big lesson COVID-19 has taught us. You are muted.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Gomez. That is very well explained. And of course, in any situation, whether it is a turbulent time or not, we need to get our feasibilities right. That is very important. And that's a good reminder also. And it's very clear that in any business, there is risk. And it's all about risk and return. And all the finance professionals, I'm sure that these are the finance basics. So that's very well explained, and you touched the right points, Dr. Gomez. That is very helpful in reminding. The next question is, now during this tough time, since companies' revenues have declined and there's a huge impact on the bottom line, the staff benefits are being curtailed. Like, there are salary cuts, and still some companies are continuing with it. And when there are salary cuts, you can't, of course, expect your bonuses and incentives. So staff motivation will be low during these times. So how do we ensure that our staff are motivated and they are working with their full potential?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very practical question. Everyone is faced with it, whether you are sitting in Sri Lanka or Dubai or in US. It's the same employee motivation. I mean, in one word, if I answer that question, I would say communication, right? How you communicate with your employees. I mean, in the first place, when such a pandemic strikes your business, and it basically changes your strategy completely, and your cash flow is disturbed significantly, the first thing the employees would want is assurance that company is able to face that challenge effectively, right? Not successfully, but effectively, right? So what strategies would the company depend on in order to survive during a difficult time? And then, I mean, organizations have a hierarchy, and different levels communicate with different levels, but in a situation of this nature, it's important for the CEO, managing director, chairman, all of them to go in front of the employees and explain to them as to what challenges are affecting the businesses, and as to how it is compared with the rest of the businesses that are playing in the same space and outside your space as well. So employees would be more worried if it is uncertainty, turbulent, that affects only your business, and all the other businesses can, thrive, then, the employees, would be highly worried. But if it is a situation where the issue equally impacts most industries, and we talked about telecommunication industry, and it's a blessing in disguise, and those guys are, minting money, and they're looking for more and more CSR activities to, manage negative sentiments, right? And locally it is happening as well. So if everyone is in the same boat, and it's not a situation where employee is compelled to think that, gosh, my company is in trouble, all the other companies are okay, and having to pass on some salary cuts and withdraw some benefits given, allowances paid, profit sharing bonuses paid, all of that, it will be a more serious issue, right? But if we talk about COVID itself, other than these couple of industries, every other industry was equally impacted, right? So therefore, it is relatively an easy communication effort to be able to keep employees motivated. So I mean, when I started off, I said, not only should you talk about the number of infections per day and number of deaths per day, also pay attention to Olympics that's happening and cricket that's going on, right? So obviously the leaders need to infuse energy into the workforce, tell them that it's not the end of the road, and as a business, as a team, we are going to get out of it. But it's a situation where we need to share the pain. It's not a situation where company can absorb the entire negative impact and not at least partially pass that on to the employees. If it is doable, yes, please do that. Because now clearly we see a situation in Sri Lanka. You might be able to compare that with other countries that you know of. Now during the first wave, when it hit, April, May, companies had to, immediately cut salaries and, withdraw a lot of facilities given, free meals to free transport to, all that were withdrawn. But came the second one, companies had got adjusted to playing in the COVID environment. So therefore, while there was lockdown and curfew, businesses were still operating, right? Came to the third one, well, I mean, factories could work, exports could happen, imports, so government sector, the officers continue to work. And so, I mean, there were limitations, but yet, we are operating our businesses. So therefore, with curtailed cash flow, also you are still able to keep looking after your employees. And we generally say, triple bottom line, right? This is the best time to take care of that. One of the three assets, right? People asset. And if you're saying that people are your biggest asset, this is the time to demonstrate that people are your best asset, right? So that can come by way of two things. You don't change the way you have been treating the employees, and CEOs never looked at the guys working on the shop floor. You can keep that way, or you can CEO can go down to the production floor and spend more time and keep talking to them and say, we are going to get out of it and we need your support, and let's put in our best effort. You do this, I will do this for you, and let's protect ourselves together. And if we come together, we collaborate, we coordinate, we share the risk, calculate the risks, and it's easy for you to be safe and stay at home, but you have no life, right? And a lot of people, if they had a choice, they wouldn't go out and work, if they had enough money to, keep their, expenses met. You're going to work because, you need to keep your income going, right? So you're coming. Therefore, yes, it is important, it is primary, it is critical. Let us, as an organization, work together and get out of that situation. So communication is important, but communication is not just language, verbal communication only, right? Now, previously, if you have, we have different senior managers here and in other countries as well, very thick-headed, big-headed guys. A lower level person, comes and says, "Good morning, sir." You won't respond. You won't even look at the guy. You just look aside and you go. And now, you have to motivate people to come and work, taking a risk. So just, following the same practice, wouldn't entice people to come and work. So you have to, before they say good morning to you, you have to say good morning to them. Hi, good morning, John. How are you doing? How is your family doing? Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Right? So that cultural shift is extremely important, right? And then they will develop a desire from within. Okay, we have to, help the company. I've been working for this company for 5 years. And, I've been earning good money. It is a difficult situation. Company's cash flow is disturbed. So therefore, I should be willing to take a 25% cut. But my boss says, and, they have refreshed their strategies, reland their strategies, and they're going to get into new areas. They're going to cut, costs from the supply chain, network. So in 2 months' time, we're going to get a full salary back. I am going to be with the company, help the company, do my best. So, this is where human values should take precedence, right? So technical communication, about strategy, what the future is important, but at the same time, human values, right? Now, whenever I speak to my people, right, my whole foundation is human values. When I talk to the employees, obviously you got to demonstrate that, you nurture human values, you respect human values, you do everything for the, humans as well. But for the human to be able to benefit, business results, have to come in as well, right? So how do you balance the two, right? So you got to keep the cycle working. So that's why I said, you come up with more frequent communication, you come up with very crystal clear strategies, you show them, where the future is, and to get back to where you were, what plans you have. You communicate at varying levels, right? If it was the divisional heads who spoke to those, divisional guys, divisional teams, now the CEO comes and talks to them. Cross-functional leaders come and talk to them, right? And you take turns, you come and talk to my team today, I'll come and talk to your team tomorrow, right? And it's not the best time to, do any team building activities. Obviously, social distancing is important, but having said that, there are things that you can do to, bring people together. And I'll give you one, little example out of, what I did 2 weeks ago. One of the directors' birthday, and on a normal day, the lady director as well. So birthday is a big thing for ladies, as we all know. We sometimes, even forget our birthday unless otherwise somebody, reminds you. But I never forget my birthday, because it's my birthday, my wife's birthday, and my first son's birthday. And my second son's birthday is 6 days away, right? So therefore, I can't afford to forget my own birthday. But having said that, right? So what we did was, they were working from home, and I got the IT guy to, put together a nice, video with that lady's photographs and music track, happy birthday, and, a little bit of 3.5 minute video. And we just told that lady, there is a business urgency, please get online. So we didn't give any prior notice, advance notice. The lady came online, and black screen, on a laptop, song played, her, pictures moving. And then at the end of it, everyone, through Skype coming online and basically singing the happy birthday song. See how you can bring people together. What kind of events you can think of while being distant to bring hearts and minds together, to have a light moment, right? And there are a number of other things, which you have experienced on social media, sharing, what you cooked at home, to, the painting you did at home, the song you practiced at home. There are a number of things, but I'll tell you, everything depends on how you communicate, your communication ability, your communication skill, your tone, your rhythm, what you say, the way you are able to, dilute somebody's heart, the way you can win somebody's heart and mind. So you got to be very persuasive, and you got to be a very lovable, respectful, admirable communicator. And if you have that, you can achieve anything.
That's right, Dr. Gomez, and the example you shared is really good, and I think we also can try this in our work as people. Thank you for that suggestion. And Dr. when you're defining turbulent times, you said one of the scale to identify whether we are living in a turbulent time is the workplace and the strategies don't apply anymore. So we can't follow the same strategies. And during turbulent times, I have seen leaders who are sometimes old school in thinking. They still, try to follow the same rules, policies, procedures, and methods of work. And if we follow that, we will fall right into the crisis, and there will be no way out. So, and these will be very senior leaders in the company. So, how do you think a board or other senior leaders or other stakeholders can tell them, explain them, and direct them in the right way?
Very, very good question. It has a lot of depth. That's why I said, this had to come from accountants. Now, this is more prevalent in family-owned businesses, right? This issue is not there anymore in large corporates, conglomerates, listed entities, multinationals. It's not there, but it is still there, mainly in family-owned businesses. So it's all about having the right governance structure, right? So you have a board of directors, and the board of directors basically call the shots. No matter if you are 2% shareholder or 50% shareholder or no shareholder, but you are a director. Directors have equal voice, in the boardroom, right? So, in terms of ensuring that you have the right strategies in place that could be powerful enough to take on all the risks. Now, if you have the right governance structure in order to comply with what is demanded by many regulatory bodies and legislation, sometimes you got to have an audit committee, right? And it has to be independent. And the chairman of the board, is not the chairman of the audit committee, it's someone else. So that's why I said governance structure. The audit committee has to be an independent body with independent power, and they have the right to say what it is and be transparent in their communication, right? So getting that thing in place and making it work is a primary requirement. So when you have a model within which you obviously, having gone through a process, get the management to propose the strategies in order to achieve the business results collectively determined by the board of directors, looking at the historical performance and looking at the market environment, looking at your competitiveness, looking at the industry growth or the degrowth, looking at
how many competitors, is it the same technology, or has the technology revolutionized the whole thing? Has, new technology, made your products, obsolete, all of that. Once you have that strategy proposed by the management, endorsed by the board, to make the strategy work in order to deliver the top line and bottom line results, in order to manage all the expenses, once that is collectively developed, at an operational level, you got to have the board members kind of spearheading different aspects of the business, right? Generally, a good board would have the key competencies, represented by the board members. There would be one person who's very solid in finance, and somebody to take care of marketing and legal, HR. Sometimes it's combined, or maybe supply chain if it's a very supply chain driven business. So they need to basically be carrying independent responsibility to take care of each piece, and any risks that is identified by the management reported to the audit committee. Audit committee should regularly review that, right? And then have a risk grid developed within which you will define or rather quantify the impact and probability of that risk coming and striking you. So you have the likelihood, and then you have the impact. If it can happen 70%, and if it happens, then it's going to be $100 million, right? So then, depending on how significant these risks are, likelihood is high, you would want to then and there start working on mitigating actions, right? Let's say, for example, imported products versus locally manufactured products, and between the two, duty differential is only, let's say, 5%, and suddenly you are an importer, and importers are banged with 5% extra duty, right? Where your competitive advantage is completely taken away, and you become a weaker competitor. And have you been able to foresee that? And if there was a likelihood, did you read that at the right point to contemplate having a local plant to manufacture locally, to not be negated by the duty gap expansion, right? Things like that. So sometimes, now you were talking about a situation, a scenario. The scenario explained was where, okay, I mean, the old school guys are holding on to their own beliefs, their own theories, their own biasness, and they don't like to change, right? So obviously at the board level, if you are a good board member and you have an obligation and there is a board allowance paid, I know in some companies it happens, you don't challenge the chairman or the CEO or the senior director, because if you challenge, next time you are out, you won't get your 150,000 allowance check at the end of each month, right? Now that is a disaster, right? So board members have to deliver, and they need to honor their commitment. So I mean, if it's a listed company or a company that has so many shareholders, should exert pressure on such people who are old school thinkers, to have the right board members who would always challenge such people. So that's the way to go. So having the right structure within which The board will make collective decisions based on management feedback. The board would regularly interact with the management, get management feedback. And if you foresee something dangerous, risky, engaging with management, getting the management to do a deep dive analysis, make a presentation, board ask questions and board provide direction, or get the management to propose alternatives. That dialogue, that engagement, has to go on. And different boards, could be the audit committee, could be the HR, remuneration committee. They all need to be independent, and the right governance model has to be in place, and you have to make that work, and that will be the way.
Thank you, Doctor. You talked about a very important subject. You are talking about corporate governance and having audit committee and so on. During this time, it's very important, and how they're acting and how responsible they are is also very important. Doctor, we have, I think, close to 10 more minutes before winding up. So I'll take few questions which will be helpful for finance professionals. Most of the people who are attending this session are finance professionals. Dr. Silcha worked in senior roles for so many years, and I'm very sure that you would have worked very closely with finance professionals. What is the expectation of top management from finance professionals working in the company during normal times and also during turbulent times?
Okay, now I will tell you what my expectation is, and there is, as far as I'm concerned, I expect the same thing in both situations. Meaning, I expect the best from the finance guys. Now, today, I got home by 4:30 from the plant in Corona. We have a BOI plant and a non-BOI plant. And if not for this, I would have stayed there till 5. All I did today was to sit with the 4 accountants there, right? To look at harmonizing the product formulations. Now, that's not something the accountants do, isn't it? So I got the R&D lady sitting in the room. So we were asking questions, where can you harmonize? And this is truth, a real example. This company that I work for now, which you mentioned during the introduction, has 150 perfumes. Can a human being identify 150 perfumes? Now these decisions weren't taken during my time. I'm only 1.5 years in the company, and I'm glad that I have an opportunity to bring it down to 50, right? And still differentiate the product, because this nose can only recognize X number, right? So 150. So I kept the accountants, not only for that, for other cost saving initiatives that we've embarked on. I had to get all 4 to say it. But one example was that, okay, now if we bring the perfumes down to 50, by how much can we reduce the working capital, right? Thereby, by how much can I reduce my finance cost? And through that, by how much can I grow my gross margin? And how does that translate to net margin, right? So, Usman, I'm telling everyone, whether it's COVID, no COVID, turbulent, no turbulent, I expect the best. I want the accountants basically to look at all the ways and means of maximizing the returns, right? Not limiting to finance, but having a peep into all the activities that happens right throughout the organization, right? Including time and motion studies of a plant to see whether we are achieving right people efficiencies or otherwise, right? So that's this thing. But yes, your question is very well formulated or articulated, in that now when you are pushed against the wall, your reaction is different versus you're not pushed against the wall, right? So let me explain that through another example. Now, a factory to run a production, in a factory to run a production line, you need to have, let's say, 20 people. Okay. So all 20 people would come when there is no COVID, right? So out of 20 people, let's say 18 people will come, and all you need is 18 people. You have 2 people extra because, you know, they take leave, and you have to, you know, allow, you have to provide for it. But it's COVID, right? Families are affected, employees affected or not affected, but family is affected. We don't want that guy to, you know, come and work on the line, right? When family is affected. So you have no choice but to look at ways and means to operate that production line with 12 guys. And you have only 12 guys. You can't recruit a new guy and you know, do a PCR test before you recruit the guy, and then, you know, train him for another, you know, 2-3 weeks before that person is, no, you can't, right? So they found ways out of desperation, right, to run the line with 12 guys. So now I'm telling the accountants, and I'm answering your question with examples. I'm now telling the accountants, now see how they did it, right? And you with, you know, assessment analysis and numbers prove that, you know, you can do that, right? So it's having 18 people working for 8 hours versus 12 people working for 9 hours, which has a stronger business case, right? So accountants need to obviously look at all the cost saving opportunities, all the synergies, you know, you can achieve. Accountants need to go beyond their own territory, go out to the market. I mean, not physically, but read the market. You know, look at what competitors are doing, what value proposition they are offering. Are we over-engineered? Is our product of over quality, right? Is it apple to apple? And you know, my price is lower, but quality is you know, over-engineered. Competitor is you know, whatever. How does that compare? So what idea can the accountant share with the marketing guys to get the marketing guys to open their eyes and ears, right? Now, when I run sales promotions, I don't get the sales guys to do any damn analysis, right? I tell marketing to, you know, look at it, and then I get the accountants to, you know, do the numbers and see if it is you know, something that has the desired result, you know, embedded in it, right? So it's very important, and most of the things are, you know, things accountants are, you know, doing anyway, but I would keep accountants above anyone and everyone else in the organization, right? Now this company, I mean, I'm the group managing director and the group CEO. I make all the decisions, but there is a chairman, right? So I keep the accountants above the chairman also. Right? When I want to make a decision, I don't, you know, ask any question from the chairman. I ask the questions from the accountants, and they, you know, tell me what is right, and then I tell the chairman, see, that is what is right for the business. Let's do that, right? So now some accountants might think, gosh, you know, I love to be in that position, but I don't get that opportunity in the organization. The culture is as such, the belief is as such, the attitude is as such. They always, you know, keep the accountants as being counters, right? Number crunching. No, accountants should be the business managers. They are the ones, you know, who should be driving the whole strategy, because strategy is meant to deliver the business returns, right? So if there is a strategy without finance and accounting input, and as a result of that, it cannot, deliver the desired bottom line, where are we headed, right? So that's my, view on it. If we have a strong accountant whose voice is heard within the organization, you would always have a strong business.
Thanks, Doctor.
That would be my last
Cool.
statement.
Yeah, we have reached 3:30 local time. I think we agreed with you that, okay, you'll be with us for 1 hour. If time permits, I will ask if you're okay, just one more question on.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I may not be able to ask this question to many other business leaders. So, I know to be one of the fittest business leaders in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And, we have been watching your TV interviews, YouTube shows, from our school days. So you keep fit, motivate people, and, you renowned to lead a very healthy lifestyle. So what is your advice to young professionals, especially during these times where we are locked up most of the time inside home? How do we lead a healthy lifestyle? How do we keep fit? I think with this question, we will be able to wind up.
Okay, no, thanks for that question. Something very, very close to my heart. Even if you want to spend half an hour on that, even if I, have something else, other interest, I will still, take that half an hour. Okay, let me answer that in many different ways. I mean, number one is, if a country's economy is to grow, you got to have a productive workforce, right? Efficient workforce. Productivity and efficiency can't be achieved without an energetic workforce. You tell me if you can. You can't, right? Look at any economy that is doing well. There are some bad examples, but let's focus on good examples. You would always find that the workforce is very energetic. They work harder than the workforce of other countries. I mean, look at China. They're very energetic, right? I mean, Chinese here in Colombo work double the time a Sri Lankan, works. Indians, do the same. Sri Lankans don't, right? So why? They're fit. They don't feel tired, right? And their mindset is tuned to that. And if they work the number of hours a Sri Lankan work, they wouldn't feel good. They wouldn't, feel that they have actually, done their job, right? So for that reason also, the fitness is important. There is a direct correlation between an economy of a country and energy of the workforce, right? I thoroughly believe in that, and I try to, cultivate that amongst everybody. So that's number one. Number two is, we talk about leadership vibes, right? If you are a leader, when you go in front of a person, the leadership has to be shown, right? And one major leadership attribute is leader has to be a powerful guy. And how do you show power? How do you show energy? How do you show agility? How do you show your reflections? How do you show your smartness? How do you show your sharpness? It's with your visual, right? So visual is not just your figure only, but other things combined. And when I came online, when I saw you guys in blazers, I just felt for a moment I didn't talk about it. I thought I should have worn a jacket as well. I mean, I love wearing jackets. I have about 50 jackets, in my wardrobe, because I do TV programs and I wear one. I can't, wear the same again, but I still keep it, for something else. But I decided, no, I mean, this is my
office room on the third level, and I decided not to. So, I mean, it's all that. So if you are a leader, you should be able to earn that respect. You should be able to be seen as a leader in the eyes of your follower. So for that reason, it's important as well, right? And when you are fit, when you are energetic, you obviously have a much stronger mind, right? The fitness, how shall I say, the people with obsession for fitness, right, are optimists. They are optimists. They are the ones who have competed. They want to keep competing. Their attitude is go, battle it out, fight it out, shoot. You know, so that attitude is important in the business world, because we work in a fiercely competitive market environment. Nothing is free. Nothing is easy, right? For everything, we have to work hard. And to work hard, first the mindset, right? Well, okay, I don't give up, that mindset. And then, okay, thinking alone won't do. You have to be able to practice that. To practice that, you got to support it with your body, right? So mind and body, well synchronized, would give you the result you want, right? And beyond this professional life, as an individual, as a professional, what do you want? You want admiration. You want love. You want people to like you. You want very positive feedback given to you by everyone who sees you, right? So for that, also, you need to look good. It doesn't have to be, you know, very fair skin and, you know, full head of hair and, you know, lasana, and, you know, it's not that. It's your power that you disseminate, right? Now, since we have, you know, so many Sri Lankans, and I think your generation also would recognize these people. So I'll take two examples. Today, we present two cricketers of Sri Lanka, 400 women to decide which one to pick, right? And I would say Ranjan Madugalle and Sanath Jayasuriya. Which one do you think the women will pick? Don't tell me, right? So that goes to show that is not how you look, it's who you are, right? How you present yourself, the image you have built, the power you have, you know, released in the past, over which you have built a personality, right? The vibes. Okay, Sanath Jayasuriya should be a hard player, not Ranjan Madugalle, right? So, you know, so it's important from all those aspects. And for me, I'm an actor as well. I'm a commercial model. So that's another extra reason, additional reason for me to, you know, stay fit. And to enjoy life, we need to be healthy as well. No? We should be able to go eat bad stuff when we feel like eating, right? So when you eat, you got to burn as well. If you don't burn, you can't eat. When you don't eat, you have no life. Am I right or wrong? So you enjoy your life as well. So to enjoy your life, to eat what you like, right? To drink what you like to drink, you know, you go to burn. So you have that reason also to, you know, stay fit and work out and all of that. Yeah, I think that's good enough.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It's an honor to have you with us today. And I think we can go on if time permits, but, you know, I know you also must be very busy. So hopefully we will try to have another session after some time, and we will be in touch with you, Doctor. Thank you for enlightening us on a very important subject today. I would also like to thank the members joined us from Sri Lanka, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Riyadh, and Dammam, and our colleagues from other professional bodies. Thank you everyone for joining with us today. Please feel free to leave your feedback on the chat box and have a good evening.
Thank you, Doctor. Really appreciate your time and for giving
Thank you,
lot
Vajra.
of. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay then, bye-bye. See you again soon. Okay.